So, you just bought yourself a nice new shiny set of car audio component speakers. But like in all things car audio, proper installation and setup is key to getting the most out of this investment. What's important for getting the most bang for your buck out of your car audio component speakers? That, my friends, is coming up. I'm Mark. Welcome to CarAudioFabrication, the channel where together we learn how to master car audio and how to design, build, and install our dream car audio system. Let's get right into it. First off, it's important to consider the location that these drivers are going to be installed in. In a two-way application, which means a component set where we have a woofer and a tweeter, we typically want these to be mounted near each other if possible. This is especially helpful for applications where we plan to run the component set passive, which means we'll be using the often included passive crossover. But in reality, it's far more common to have a factory location for the woofer that would be in a door, and another factory location either in the sail panel or up on the dash where the tweeter could be mounted. In these applications where the drivers cannot be easily mounted near each other, it is especially beneficial to run these active. To run active means that each of these drivers gets its own channel of amplifier power. But it's also advantageous to incorporate a device called a digital signal processor, or DSP, as part of the system. With a DSP, we're able to make the needed corrections in order to account for the speakers not being mounted near each other. Now, a quick side note, before you can purchase component speakers, you may be asking yourself, how do I know what is going to fit in the vehicle anyhow? And for this, I recommend our show sponsor, Crutchfield. On the Crutchfield website, you can enter the year, make, and model of your vehicle, and for vehicles that they've researched, you could see example pictures of the speaker locations, along with being able to shop what speakers will fit. For qualifying purchases, they often include the needed custom brackets and wire harnesses to adapt to the vehicle. And even better yet, they've helped out our community with a special offer that you guys can use to save on your next car audio purchase. You can take advantage of that at the links down in the video description. The next thing you need to do to make sure you get the most out of your component speakers is you want to make sure that you follow proper installation techniques when it comes to installing the woofers. First off, we want to be sure that we use strong, robust mounting rings. Avoid using thin, flimsy materials just for the sake of making a custom adapter. Personally, I also recommend against the use of an organic material like wood indoors, as the door locations are often more prone to moisture. If going the custom route, acrylic, ABS, and HDPE are great materials, and 3D printing with a material that can handle the heat of the vehicle like ABS or ASA is also a great choice. Now, when installing the speaker into these rings, we want to make sure that we use a gasketing material between the speaker and the mounting ring itself. We also want to get a good seal between the adapter and the door, and we want to use foam to guide the sound waves through the speaker grill on the plastic door panel. Separating the rear wave from the front wave on the woofer is critical here, so no trying to use a 6x9 spacer with a 6.5-inch speaker where you have those big holes open on the side. It's critical to have the two sides isolated from one another. Now, depending on the tweeter location, some of these same installation techniques apply. Tweeters typically have a closed back design, so the main thing to pay attention to here is that we're guiding the sound through the OEM grill if there is one. And if possible, we also want to try to limit the amount of grills in front of the tweeter driver. So if there is an aftermarket one that we're able to remove, it's a good idea to pop it out if it's going to be behind a factory one. Next up, even if our system design is going to keep the use of passive crossovers, there are some things we can do with these to make sure that we get the most out of our component speakers. First off, let's say that we're mounting our tweeter in a location that it is closer to our listening position. Odds are that it could potentially sound a bit harsh or be overbearing just because of how close it is to us. If that's the case, many passive crossovers include a little jumper that we can adjust in order to attenuate the volume of the tweeter. Some passive crossover networks have even more additional options. The point here being, if you're doing an install that has these passive crossovers, make sure you take advantage of that adjustability. With that all said, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can do to get the most out of your component speakers is implement a digital signal processor. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but first off, a disclaimer, a DSP cannot fix a poor quality install. So the other topics we already discussed are still important, but a DSP allows us to control time delay, equalization, and crossover points for every amplified channel. Now, if you're new to DSP, an important note here, it's also important that you design as part of your system aftermarket amplifiers, preferably with a channel of power per speaker driver. So as an example, if I was running a set of 3-way components up front, that's 6 channels: front left and right tweeters, front left and right mids, and front left right woofers. Now, if you did only have a 2-channel amplifier, you could still use a passive crossover in order to break out into those 6 dedicated channels for a 3-way component system, and you could even still add a DSP in front of that 2-channel amplifier and gain some of the benefits of DSP. But if you're going that route, I still would encourage you to try to go fully active, having a channel of amplifier power for every single driver in the system. Of course, that assumes that your budget and application allows for it. And a quick side note, just to get this out of the way in case the question came up in your mind, you can have multiple subwoofers on one channel of amplifier power along with a DSP. That's pretty common to do so. You don't need to have dedicated amplifier channels per subwoofer. Now, to get the most out of our component speakers when we are implementing a DSP, we of course need to tune the DSP properly. One aspect of that is picking proper filters or crossovers. For example, allowing a tweeter to play too low can lead to damaging the tweeter, so we need to pick a proper high pass filter. Now, in contrast, allowing a woofer to play too high can lead to an issue called beaming. Beaming is basically where the sound becomes more narrow and focused as you go up in frequency. As an example, if you are measuring with a microphone right here, it's going to be louder at a higher frequency than if you were to measure off axis over here. I have other videos on the channel that go more into detail on that, but basically it's something that you want to control, much like you also want to prevent these from playing too low, as that can also cause damage on these woofers. In order to get the most out of our component speakers, we must pick proper crossover points between each of the drivers. You guys can learn more about that full process in my dedicated video here on the channel. So these are just a few of the key suggestions for getting the most out of a set of component speakers. But I would love to hear from you guys if you have anything to add. If you are new here, I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and don't forget that you can learn exactly what size speakers fit into your vehicle with our show sponsor Crutchfield, and take advantage of a special offer at the links down in the video description. A big thanks to them, along with Jerry and the rest of the Patreon membership team, for making these videos possible. And as always, my friends, thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching.